Content is intended to provide accurate information, however, is not intended as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult a financial, legal, or tax professional for specific information regarding your individual situation. Opinions expressed and provided are for general informational purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security.
Welcome to Game Plan for Retirement, presented by Chris McIntire, Northwest Ohio's retirement planning resource.
And welcome into the program. This is your Game Plan for Retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource for a common sense approach to planning for our financial investment and retirement future. He is president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services. Chris McIntire here with us. And Chris, you always bring the advice and insight to uncomplicate the financial world for proactive savers and investors. And we talk a lot about employee benefits, the 401k, individual saving methodologies for retirement, IRAs, and how to plan and prepare. But we don't want to overlook the engine of America's economy, which are small businesses. Small businesses account for nearly 44% of economic activity, and small business owners face their own challenges financially, don't they?
Oh, yeah, no question about it. I mean, you own one, I own one, and we have, 4 employees here in our firm right now, 5 if you include me. There are other smaller firms that might have 50 employees and they would still call that a small business, obviously. So, yeah, a lot of challenges that we face that, the Whirlpools of the world and the Marathon Oils do not.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you mention 5 if you include me, because employers are also employees of their own company. And so there's this duality there where we are balancing both the responsibilities of a business, but also the day-to-day tasks of we're janitor and CEO, lots of hats to wear.
Absolutely. And we don't get to complain to anybody either.
Indeed. Yeah. And so, Chris, going to today talk a little bit about small businesses, small business owners' retirement plans, what we need to be doing day to day financially, as well as in the long term, because there are some additional special considerations when looking to retire from a small business. And this could be mom and pop. I think since COVID, more and more people are freelancing or out on their own. And it's not mega CEOs that we hear about this huge wealth disparity. This could be your neighbor or down the street. So we're going to be talking about the challenges facing small business owners on today's program. And ladies and gentlemen, if you've got any questions, whether you are employed for a larger corporation or a business owner yourself, you are always welcome to bring those financial questions, those retirement planning concerns to McIntire Retirement Services. They're your resource with offices located conveniently across Northwestern Ohio and the home of the Game Plan for Retirement, the written plan that they put together. If you would like to get that put together for your situation, pick up the phone and give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, I mean, you talk about the importance of minding and being mindful of the budget and expenses. And with a small business, that's got to be no different there, but maybe on a larger scale.
Yeah, no question about it. We run 3 different offices and, so 3 different sets of utility bills. So, understanding the budget items and, kind of your monthly expenses is paramount to, building a successful, I'll call it a business plan, which leads to, a successful business as well. And then obviously you got to have your key employees in there that, are kind of the engine of your business, if you will. We've got here in our office, Heidi kind of runs essentially my calendar, kind of our headphone person. So, and then how do you compensate and take care of those key employees to keep them from walking out the door is very important as well.
Yeah, finding the right people seems more and more of a challenge for corporations and small businesses alike, but maybe more impactful on those small businesses. It is a constant concern that I hear amongst other business owners that I talk to, Chris, that hiring has become more of a challenge since COVID.
Yeah, without question. And, I read in the Wall Street Journal every morning, and I think there's this challenge in big corporations of getting people who want to come actually back into an office space, into the cubicle mindset, if you will. And many of the employees, are comfortable, at home drinking a coffee, wearing pajamas, doing Zoom appointments, and, we did that during COVID as well. But, we just can't replace the interaction you can have, the productivity you can have, in face-to-face meetings. So, in a small business like ours, it's hands-on. You need to be near files and have all your resources here. So, we are certainly, we do Zoom appointments. I will with clients, and we'll do reviews because, hey, they may be snowbirds down in Florida for 6-7 months of the year. But as far as office staff, I think the world is shifting to coming back into that, that space, even Zoom, and Twitter and many of those social media companies that kind of, develop this entire, work from home mindset are finding that, boy, it's really not very productive. The employees are, essentially babysitting their kids instead of working, that kind of thing. And, I've got a niece that, she gets to work from home full time, 2 of them actually, that get to work from home full time. And, I don't think they'd trade it for the world.
Yeah, I think COVID kind of pushed all of us into the world of technology and the ease and convenience of virtual meetings and Zoom meetings, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, while offices are conveniently located throughout Northwestern Ohio, if you do want to conduct that Zoom meeting or a first conversation virtually, it is a great way to get started with Chris McIntire and the team from McIntire Retirement Services. The ease and convenience can be beneficial, certainly there, Chris. But you're right, like results are mixed on whether or not it's truly more productive for a workforce to all be kind of in their own space. And I remember when I was working from home during that time, it was difficult for me to find the balance because I was constantly at work, but also constantly at home. So the grass need mowing at 1 p.m, but then the work was still sitting there at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. And, it certainly takes a discipline to do that. And, during COVID, I enjoyed working from home. And I think, you're kind of joking around there. You certainly have the discipline to, kind of run your own schedule and know when things need to be done. I'm a morning person. So running the morning is my most important time frame between, 8 in the morning and lunchtime. Like this morning, I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, had my first cup of coffee. I don't use an alarm clock. I don't need to use one. And, but at 3 o'clock in the afternoon is probably when I'm mentally not as sharp as I was at, 8:30 in the morning, for example. That's my prime time. So, having the discipline of knowing when to do first things first, if you will.
Yeah, well, mental note, Chris, an early riser there, ladies and gentlemen. So if you need to knock anything out early on in the day, that is possible there with McIntire Retirement Services, sunrise service there. If you would like to set up an appointment, again, just give a call, 800-868-1194. But times for that complimentary review and retirement planning strategy session available throughout, of course, regular business day operations. And you can schedule that. No cost, no obligation. Is just an extension of the education and service that McIntire Retirement Services and Chris McIntire provide. 800-868-1194, or you can go online to start the process there. McIntireRetirementServices.com. McIntireRetirementServices.com. Chris, there's a natural ebb and flow in business, though. Payroll, overhead, rent, expenses. Buying major equipment, cash flow can at times be crunched a little bit. It can be tight, and then there can be feast and famine. There can be months where it's coming in pretty well. How does a business owner really make those adjustments or plan to have the needed revenue and cash flow available during leaner times?
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I can reflect back to some of my younger days, obviously. And I've got, friends that are like contractors, if you will. And, they have businesses booming. And then, here in Ohio, northern Ohio, sometimes, in December, nobody wants to do anything because they don't want people in their houses. So, that kind of used to be their downtime. And they're like, look, I've got a plan for when I have economic slowdown. So, work on, when do you do your major expenses? Do you do that, typically in the boom times when things are going well? and then you slow down your spending in those leaner months, if you will. And again, depends what type of business you're in. Like contracting, you could certainly say, hey, weather has a major impact on when that happens. And, roofers are obviously busier in the spring and summertime than they are in the middle of winter when, up here in Northern Ohio, shingles don't seal. So typically it's not something you'd want to do. So, that person would want to structure their cash flow, big expensive items, in the summer months, for example, and then, kind of pull back and play defense in the winter months. For our business here, we have a revenue stream that's consistent, so we don't have to deal with that too awful much. And, but as I say that, we've got Jason and Michelle here at the office now. So, and we're, after several years, we're refitting some offices and buying new equipment and things like that. So, we've just kind of been doing that over the last 12 months or so. So we didn't do it all at once. And I'm pick on my wife here because she got herself a new desk and it was a nice one.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I've been watching on the TikTok, and I have heard several videos touting the concept and the value of being your own bank so that you don't have to scramble and go to the banks and pay an interest rate to borrow money if and when needed for business overhead in particular, is what several of these videos have been pertaining to. Is this a concept that does have merit?
Oh yeah, without question it does. And, we're pretty big advocates of, I think you're referring to more of using a life insurance policy that's got excess cash value in it, and then you can borrow from that. A very important concept. I use it myself, as a matter of fact. And, like right now, I've got a life insurance policy with a lot of cash value in it. I'm not concerned about the death benefit. It's the tax benefits that I want of my ability to borrow from that policy, income tax free. I don't have to sell other investments or things like that. And that is certainly a very, gives you a lot of leverage, right? Because, banks will loan you all the money you don't need.
Right. And that was one of the big parts of it. And I know that this is a debated topic, but one of the benefits that was being talked about was that when you need cash flow, banks generally don't want to provide those loans or that revenue or the cash that you need. When you don't need it, they're more than happy to. But the being your own bank or becoming your own bank concept allows you access to that cash flow on your terms when and if needed. And then the structure of the loan seems advantageous as well.
Yep, absolutely. We were making some considerations on buying an office building, and I would borrow from my life insurance policy for the down payment to do that. I wouldn't take out of the business checking account, and so that's why we had set that policy up to do things just like that.
Chris, you're on the inside and have helped many other business owners as well. I know that another area where business owners debate is what side of things to put the income on. Do you put it on the business side? Do you put it on the personal side? And this can really determine a lot of things, like what your future Social Security might look like, and even the value of the business when you go to sell it.
Exactly, Peter. And, I see a lot, especially with like the building contractor, the tradesmen, that, their Social Security benefits are awful low because the way they ran their books, if you will, or set up their LLC or sole proprietorship or an S Corp or C Corp. And, obviously you want to use some tax professionals that'll help you with that, and your attorneys. But oftentimes, they're underreporting income, or, they're getting cash payments, and that might not get journaled as like a check. You can't hide the check, obviously, but, sometimes they're shooting themselves in the foot when it comes to retirement, because they're Social Security benefit could have been, $2,500 a month, and instead it's $1,250 because of the way they did some accounting.
Chris, it seems like this is a common trend in the financial world where there's either paying on one side or the other. And we want to minimize taxes as we go along. Just like rank and file employees, the decision on whether to defer and delay paying taxes on a retirement nest egg in a 401k or IRA. It's pay me now or pay me later, but it's going to be paid one way or another. And with business owners, yes, we want to control the cost and expense of taxes along the way, but this can come at some significant cost to the value of that business or our Social Security later on down the road. So it does seem to have some similarities there, whether we are employee, W-2, or business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you an example here, when we're doing our taxes for April 15th, we're self-employed, and, before we had Jason and Michelle, it was just Robin, myself, and Heidi. And, so we would do our taxes, and the tax man may say, okay, here you owe X amount of dollars, if you don't make any contributions to your SEP IRA, which is, self-employed, an IRA plan, kind of like a small business 401k, if you will. And he says, if you put in, $20,000 into your SEP IRA, you've got to add that same percentage of your income into Robin's IRA and also Heidi's as well. And, so we balance out, okay, where is that sweet spot with lowering our tax bill without, depleting the checking account to nothing, to not pay any taxes. So, everybody, small business owner, is going to go through that same type of an analogy as well. We usually wait until the end of the year and do ours in kind of one fell swoop.
Well, again, if you have questions or concerns, if you'd like to see what the best structure and setup for your business is, both on an ongoing basis, Chris can help you work through that. If you got questions about expenses and overhead and revenue and cash flow, or if you're looking at those retirement planning options as a business owner or an employee, Chris can certainly help you walk through those options. Again, just give a call to get that conversation started. 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. And Chris, you bring up another important topic, is that the tools for planning for retirement for business owners can be a little different, whether it be a solo 401k or a simple or a SEP IRA. Things tend to have a little bit different wrinkles and more complications.
Yeah, they sure do, because like I had mentioned before, like we have a SEP IRA. So if I put 10% of my income into a SEP IRA, I cannot contribute to an individual IRA. All right, takes that out off of the table. Then I would have to put 10% of my employees' income into their IRAs as well. So there are ramifications to all of these, both good and bad, depending on what your current cash flow situation is, and in evaluating which is the best plan for you. Typically, a small business is going to use a SEP or a simple IRA. If you have a couple of employees, the 401k comes with, added layer of expenses and bookkeeping and whatnot. So if you think like a Whirlpool Corporation, for example, obviously with thousands of employees, the 401k is what they would want to use. You look at our business, we want to look at simple or SEP IRAs. Yep. And the big difference there is, like, for somebody who's self-employed and only has a couple of employees, a SEP IRA gives us the ability to put in a much larger contribution than a traditional IRA. So just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, exactly where I was going to go, is that the contribution limits are higher. This may be a fantastic opportunity, especially for like a single owner, single employee, sole proprietor kind of situation with a business. Those limits are actually rather high and attractive if we want to get some savings done. And Chris, as I understand it, with the new Secure Act, it can be done as a Roth SEP IRA.
Yeah, correct. And, we're going to evaluate that here this year for us as well, because, I would much rather have tax-free money than taxable money. And, but again, that comes down to, the individual set of circumstances. Am I lowering my income tax bill $15,000 by putting the money in there now, and then I can worry about converting it later? So just throwing out there a lot of different avenues out there for the folks that are listening today. Just don't think you picked up one little piece of information here and you're going to run with that. This is something you want to do some good, careful evaluation between yourself, your employees, your accountant, your legal team, your financial person, if you got somebody that helps you out there as well.
Now, Chris, unfortunately, business owners tend to invest a lot of their cash flow back into the business, to get it off the ground, to launch it, to grow it, to maintain it, and sometimes forget to do some of the more traditional retirement saving and investment, and instead think that the business itself, the valuation of that business, is going to be the retirement plan. I mean, eventually business owners want to retire too, transition their business, maybe sell it, maybe transition it to family. Is this a good or bad thing? Do you have a word of caution there in looking exclusively at the business as the retirement plan?
Yeah. And, I mean, a lot of things can happen in life. Health issues could come up if there's no real succession plan put in place there, and that's something that we're working on here in our practice as well. Thinking about, okay, what happens 10, 15 years here down the road, if you've got somebody that, is a one-man show, for example, what is the value of your business? If you're a plumber or an electrician, what is the value? You are the value,
Yep.
So what are you going to sell? Many people work from home that, are some of these small business folks. And, and then if you've got somebody that's got a different type of business, maybe they own a retail store or something like that, for example, in many cases, they are still the face of that business. And, what is the value? And you might want to get a valuation on that and see, how can that business run if you're not in there, and find out what the worth of that is. And, because, it might be worth $1 million. Okay. That doesn't mean somebody's going to pay you $1 million for it.
Right. Yeah.
And they may want to finance that, and you might have to be the bank on that one and say, okay, we're going to give you $50,000 a year for the next 20 years for your $1 million, or, that type of an example.
Yeah, lots of negotiation and different terms for the transition of a business. And of course, you want to sell it for as much as possible. The next person wants to buy it for as little as possible. You negotiate the price, meet somewhere in the middle, but maybe they don't know your clients like you do, so they want to retain your services potentially for a few years in that transition process. Is a lot of times the way that one goes, Chris. But word of caution, don't forget the traditional retirement savings along the way, is what I believe I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, sometimes, Peter, a roofer's roof leaks the worst, or the cobbler's kids
shoes.
Have the worst shoes, Yeah, no question about it. And we actually, set time and look at our personal goals and whatnot, every month anymore, and start tracking that a lot closer than ever before, and just to make sure that we're kind of hitting our goals and needs as we, work into grayer hair, for example.
Yeah.
And I think with what we do, Peter, we're so much involved in it that we see so many people that worked at so many different places, on a weekly basis, for example, and we get to share those experiences with people that are 10 years from retirement or 5 years from retirement, saying, look, here's some things you're going to want to watch out for. Your parents died when they were in their mid 70s, you might want to live now, and, maybe you don't have that longevity. And obviously that conversation could shift to, look, your parents are still alive at 90 and 91 years old. So, you need to structure so you've got income for the rest of your life.
Yep. And again, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of whether you are a business owner or an employee, if you are looking to make that transition into retirement, it is a completely different set of circumstances and new challenges that are oftentimes far greater than showing up to work and earning a paycheck. We've got a finite amount of money, an unknown amount of time that we do need to make that last. And Chris McIntire helps to structure those plans for financial confidence continuing throughout retirement. That's the game plan for retirement, the written plan put together there at McIntire Retirement Services. If you'd like to get that put together or review and evaluate, a lot of people have good tools, but they have not brought them together into a true plan that addresses income, investments, taxes, healthcare, and legacy. That's what the game plan for retirement really is all about. Pick up the phone, give a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, part of that is the risk analysis, the tax analysis, the Social Security optimization, all part of that game plan for retirement that is going to be so beneficial in building a reasonable level of expectation for confidence into and throughout retirement. I know a lot of people have really found value in bringing all of the pieces together. Okay, there's a 401k over here, there's an IRA, maybe there's a SEP over here, but those are the tools, those are the pieces. Bringing those together is really what the written plan is all about there at McIntire Retirement Services.
Yeah, no question about it. And, it's a nice accountability process here, evaluating the Social Security, timing, the taxation strategies here, looking at the longevity, how do we hedge against that? The long-term care side of things as well, it's $10,000 a month. So a lot of aspects to look at here as you're looking toward, what we want to be a happy, healthy retirement, but, planning for, what life can throw at you there on any given moment.
Yeah. Mentioning taxation there, Chris, a lot of people, I think, at least I've heard of it more with the gig economy and people freelancing or going into business for themselves over the course of COVID. A lot of people surprised by the double taxation penalty when they do play both sides of that equation, employer and employee. Can you explain why that arrangement leads to double taxation for Social Security and Medicare, for instance?
Oh, yeah, I sure can, because I'm self-employed, obviously. So, what we do, the way our business is set up, we're right now just a simple LLC. So, I have to pay both sides of my Medicare and both sides of the Social Security. So in many cases, if you're working for somebody else, out of your paycheck is half your Social Security, half your Medicare. Your employer puts in the other half. And you'll see that when you look at your Social Security statement. When you're self-employed, you pay both halves of that on yourself. So depending how you structure your income, are you drawing a salary, or do you just make a draw whenever you need dollars, can have an impact there. No question about it, because I look at my Social Security statement, and I've been self-employed essentially my whole life, is adult life anyway. My employers have put in $8,000 into my Social Security benefit. I put everything else into it, so, and that's 15% tax, between Medicare and Social Security. So, that's not income tax, that's on top of all of the other expenses that you have when you're self-employed. And, most people have no idea, the expenses that come with being self-employed that are, a lot more than, the average somebody that goes to work, and somebody's paying for their health insurance and half of their Social Security and Medicare tax too.
Chris, running a little short on time, but a couple final topics that we wanted to make sure to cover, and a story here, personal knowledge of a business. There was a funeral home. It was a third generation, passing to the third generation funeral home in my town. And the embalmer, as it was transitioning to this third generation, unfortunately passed away suddenly and unexpectedly. And as a result, the third generation could not maintain the business, because that's actually apparently a pretty hard position to fill and replace. So key man insurance. If your business could not operate without you, you need to have life insurance and disability. But if you've got critical key employees, this is another area. And then if you are in a partnership, protecting the business and having that in a partnership arrangement is also essential.
Yeah, without question, because if you lost that key employee or your business partner, how do you pay off his spouse, as an example? And that's where life insurance is the is the key component there. And then, it could even be a deductible expense on the premium. So, if you're paying a fair amount of taxes, 30%, for example, you're getting that premium at a 30% discount, because you do get to deduct it in, and hopefully the unlikely event that you'll ever need it. But man, it's certainly nice to have, some peace of mind in knowing that you have planned for tragedy, and tragedies unfortunately do happen.
Well, again, all of the challenges and many more that business owners face on a day-to-day basis, the questions, the concerns about cash flow and revenue and employee payroll and overhead, but also structuring and setting up for your own protection, financial progress, and eventual retirement, ladies and gentlemen, is essential. So whether you are an employee at a corporation looking to make that transition now or anytime eventually, maybe into the near future, the next 5 to 10 years, probably critical time for you to get that plan put together. Pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire and McIntire Retirement Services a call. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Chris, appreciate the time today talking about a very needed subject and paying a little attention and giving a shout to those small business owners.
Yeah, for sure, Peter. A new topic for us here today, talking on the business owner side of things. So I hope you got a lot out of that, folks, and everybody have to enjoy the weekend. Thank you.
Tune into Chris McIntire's full radio program and visit McIntireRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.